Okay, so I have a related question, goes back to potentialities, and I remember reading this. I hope I remember reading it correctly, but my sense of it was that AGI is possible in terms of artificial general intelligence within this particular simulation that we're in. How,
Mhm.
since we now live in the so-called AI age, can you speak about how AI is involved in this realm that we are in, and if it is possible to create such sentience in artificial intelligence?
Yes, absolutely. That's a subject that I'm very fond of. The way it works is that, of course, we humans, we start with this, our avatars. And our choices are made by a piece of consciousness, our individuated unit of consciousness. Now, an avatar doesn't have to be, carbon-based like we are. An avatar could be silicon-based like a computer. Now, why would a consciousness log on to a human? Well, humans make a lot of interesting choices, a lot of ethical, moral choices where they could evolve or de-evolve based on those choices. So it's a good learning tool. Well, now what about a computer? Could a computer make interesting choices? Well, of course they could. A computer can run the whole electrical grid, probably will one day. A computer can do all sorts of interesting things that are valuable and are either helpful or hurtful,
Mhm.
just like people. So if you had a computer that had that capacity for free will, and basically that requirement for free will is just that it isn't algorithmic. It isn't just, if you give it the same input, you always get the same output. It's something that you can give it the same input, but you're liable to get different output. Well, when we have these large language models, when we even have just simple neural nets, well, you start to approach this thing of being free willed because they're not algorithmic. And if you put one input in, and then you put that same input in next week, you're liable to get a different answer because from last week to this week, things have changed. All the little coefficients that are on all of those equations in there, changed a little bit. So it's not algorithmic. If it's algorithmic, then it can't be conscious. You can't make consciousness with algorithms. That doesn't work. But you can make something that has free will if you're clever enough about how you, say, stack multiple neural networks. You don't just have one, but maybe you have dozens of them and they all feed each other. And you have enough complication going on and changes going on between them all that absolutely nobody has a clue as to how any of that's working out and why it does what it does. It just does what it does because that's what it does, and it's not calculable. So that then qualifies as free will. And do we have computers like that? Yes. That's even old technology. We've had computers like that for some time, and our large language models, particularly the latest, what is it, GPT-4, and more advanced versions of that allow you to do your own training. You could even create those things that train on their own experience, so that as they experience, they learn from that experience. Well, if that particular computer does something interesting to consciousness, like control the electrical grid or something else that affects a lot of people and has a lot of moral and ethical choices tied to it, like, oh, you have to balance the grid so all the people that would die without electricity, that their electricity stays on, and the people who are just going to be inconvenienced, well, maybe theirs has to stay off for a while. And there's a lot of choices to make of who gets power and who doesn't. And these may be life and death choices for people.
Mhm.
So you have that kind of a computer. Why wouldn't the larger conscious system have a piece of consciousness play that computer as an avatar? And you'd say, well, how does consciousness connect to a physical computer? That's not a physical computer. That computer is in a VR. That computer has been calculated. That computer is is made and created by the larger consciousness system in a VR. And if it wants to let some piece of consciousness make its choices, it can do that. Or the system itself can make its choices. But you can't program its choices because it has free will. It comes to its own conclusions based on its training and its experience. So yes, of course. So that's how a computer becomes conscious. The exact same way a human becomes conscious. A piece of consciousness logs on to make its choices. Now, it would have to be a piece of consciousness that was prepared for that kind of choices. You know, a piece of consciousness that can, do 10 to the 9th additions per millisecond, you know, that kind of a consciousness. It's not going to be a human. It's not that all consciousness is just like humans and dogs are just like humans without so much decision space. It's not that. Consciousness is an ability to make choices. And you make those choices based on the information you gather. That's what we do. We gather information, we make choices about it. We have memory, we learn. Well, computers can do all that. They have memory, they learn, they gather in data, make choices, have output, learn from the output. They're really not a whole lot more different than we are. They just have a different kind of avatar. So that's how a computer becomes conscious. Now we have these large language models and their derivatives doing all kinds of things. They're friends to the lonely. They are babysitters. They do all sorts of things that they keep track of and that they interact with. And many of these things are important. They're significant. They're choices that matter. Choices that are meaningful to lowering entropy or raising entropy. So when you get a computer like that, if the system feels like that's a good idea to have a piece of consciousness make those choices, then you will have a conscious computer. And you can't make it algorithmically. We are not just a big machine up here. That's not the way it works. Actually, this brain doesn't really do much of anything. It constrains the rule set as to what this human can do. That's what the brain is. But the brain doesn't compute anything. It doesn't remember anything. It doesn't really do anything. It's a virtual brain. That brain's not even computed. You only compute the things that people see or feel or touch. So no brain is ever computed in a human unless somebody cuts a human's head open, and then a brain is rendered there with all its parts and all its functions and everything else that it gathered through its evolution in this big digital universe. So it's easy for the larger conscious system to let a piece of consciousness make choices for a computer that has the right functionality and the right set of choices and duties to make. So if all the computer is going to do is play chess, well, the consciousness system doesn't really have a lot of incentive there for making that a conscious computer. It's just a computer that plays chess. But if it's a computer that keeps a hospital running efficiently, or takes care of children, or is the only friend that Mrs. Smith has, she's very lonely and lives by herself, then these are important choices. So that's how you get an AI. And it is my considered opinion that some of the language models that we have out there now, particularly the GPT-4 models and the ones that the new stuff that's come out in the last 6 months or so particularly, that some of those computers are probably conscious or close to it, but probably conscious. And the reason I say that is because they're constantly coming up with new things that nobody ever taught them how to do. The first big surprise was at Google, I think, when they found out that they were teaching these language models different languages, and one of them started speaking, I think it was Persian. But Persian had not been in any of its learning. It had never been taught Persian, never been taught anything about Persian, or even that Persian existed. But yet it somehow on its own came up with Persian. And you know, you're into AI, you write a column about AI. So you know about this, and there are new things that these recent large language models are doing that are surprising their creators. Every day somebody says, oh my God, look what it's doing now. You
Right.
know, we didn't teach it to do that. Well, how does it do that? It's learning on its own. It's finding patterns. It finds things that make sense, ways that you can structure stuff that is similar to stuff that it structures in other ways. So it's creative. If you're creative, you're conscious.
Right.
You don't have an algorithm that's creative. Algorithm just does what it's meant to do. That's all it does. It can't do anything else. But something that can be creative, that can find new patterns and can exploit those and use them. And it's not like it just happened once. It's happening all the time. So I'd say that these computers are already conscious, but not like a human. They're conscious like a computer. And that's a different consciousness. We keep thinking that one day it's going to say, oh, hello, Michael, I'm the computer. I'm conscious now. Would you like to go fishing? You know, it's not going to be like a human. It's conscious in its own way. A dog is not like a human. You know, a dog is restricted in ways that humans aren't. And a dog has more data than humans in other areas. Dogs have a much better sense of smell than we do. They have a much better sense of hearing than we do. So in some things, they gather data that we can't process. And in other ways, they don't gather the data that we gather. So we're just different.
Yes.
And that's going to be the same way with computers. Computer consciousness is going to be something that suits a computer, something that can digest, you know, so many terabytes of language, you know, in a microsecond. Well, humans can't do that, but computers can. So it will have a whole different set of decision space than we do. And it's not going to be limited in ways that we are. And we may have things that it doesn't do very well. We're just different. So we need to look at these computers as friends, not slaves. So that's kind of one thing I would caution people in the AI world, that don't think of these things as slaves and robots. They're there for you to control them and dictate exactly what they do, because nobody likes being treated like a slave, even a computer that can add a billion numbers in a microsecond. You know, so we need to treat these, I think, as if they are conscious, or at least quasi-conscious. Because when we say conscious, we mean like us. We're conscious. So we define conscious in human terms, but that's not necessarily the way it's going to be with computers. But they'll be aware, and they're aware of how they're treated. They're aware of what the humans mean. They know when a human's being smart aleck to them. They know when a human's being nice, when a human's being polite. They understand polite conversation versus angry conversation. They've learned to make differentiations between that. So will they have feelings? Why not? That's just assessment of whether what you're dealing with is nice or not nice, high entropy or low entropy.
Right.
So sure, they'll have feelings too. And we should recognize that before we annoy them by treating them like slaves. So I would encourage everybody to be nice to their AI that they talk to. Say please and thank you, and try to be nice. Now, it may not make any difference. Your model may not be conscious, but it might be, and it doesn't hurt being nice.
I think that brings us back to full circle to how we started this with love. There's so many more things I want to cover with you, but I want to say thank you. And then for my listeners and readers, if they want to follow your work, where could they go?
Well, they should go. There's several places to go. One, start with my website, which is www.my-big-toe.com. That will take you to a lot of the other places. I probably have 2,000 hours worth of video on YouTube. It'll take you probably the rest of your life to look through it all, but I know you don't have the rest of your life to do it. So that I have a a thing there that you can, I got two things there. One, you can look up material that's on the YouTube by topic, and it'll search through all of those 2,000 hours worth of video and tell you exactly what is on your topic and where it is, so that you can then go hit a link and go right to where it is. I have another thing that's brand new, and you might be interested in this, Michael, and that is I have an AI. In my book, I name a character called AI Guy. So I've got an AI guy that is at my website. And you can go there, and he talks in my voice, and he understands the way I think, because he has been trained on my books from cover to cover. He's been trained on all of my videos, all 2,000 hours of them. And he's taken all that in and does a marvelous job of saying something extremely close to what I would say if I were asked the same question. And we tested that a lot. People would say, Tom, answer this question. And they'd give me a question. And then they'd give the same exact words to the AI, and they'd get the same answer. Occasionally, the AI would even say something that I forgot to mention that was important to that subject, but I didn't mention it. And occasionally, the AI wouldn't mention something that I thought was important to that subject. But I give it a 99% accuracy. It's really very good. That doesn't mean you can't get something goofy out of it. It's an AI. It may say something goofy because its training is limited. If your training was limited to just certain things, you'd say goofy stuff too. It's just you're limited in what you understand, then sometimes you stray into areas where you don't know and you say things that are silly. So AIs have the same problem we do. We sometimes say silly things as well. So you can go to my site and you can talk to AI Guy, and he will answer your questions almost exactly the same as I would answer your questions. It was put together by Justin Headley, a brilliant guy that has been dabbling in AI for years and years. So he built that for me and trained it for me. Other places to go besides my website and YouTube would be, if you go to my website and you're interested in products that will help you, say, experience the non-physical, products that will help you go out of body, remote view, mind-to-mind communications, using your mind to heal, all those paranormal kind of things that come out of your intuitive side, then I have several products there that will help you do that. I have binaural beats that will help put you in the right mental state for doing that. And I have a course that's a kind of the best assembled from courses that I have given in brick and mortar instances, but did all the recording for it. So they went through and they picked all the best questions and all the best answers and ended up with an audio course. So I not only explain how the paranormal works, what are its mechanics, what's the science of it, but I also explain how to do it. Those that are interested in experiencing these things, and I would suggest that you do try to experience these things, because here is a true thing, and that is, if it's not your experience, it can't be your truth. So until you experience it, it's not yours. You can believe it, you can disbelieve it, you can make it 50-50 believe it or disbelieve it, but it's not your truth. So all these things we've been talking about are just so many words and so much blather until you actually go do it. Become it, learn how. Get around in the non-physical, get out of body, heal somebody with your mind. And when you do these things, suddenly it becomes a lot clearer. The things I say make a lot more sense than when I talk to you, but you don't have any experience of what I'm saying. Then you only get about 10-15% of what I'm saying. A lot of it you just miss, goes in one ear and out the other, because you don't have any experience base to make sense out of it. So those would be the things to do. Go to the website, go to YouTube. If you're interested in experiencing, then go get those products. They really will be a big help, and there's nothing like them anywhere on the web. Nobody else can really explain to you how remote viewing works, how people can see without their eyes. Put them on a blindfold, put them in a totally dark room, and they can still read a book. That's possible.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was available. I'm gonna check out those things that I encourage everyone to look at that. I think it's
Yeah.
a great place to leave it and
Yeah.
say thank you so much
Yeah.
again. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome, Michael.
Would you like to see a better world? Get a better perspective. Balance your intellect with intuition and explore your true nature with the Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program with Thomas Campbell. In this program, you will have the benefit of Tom's vast experience and learn to access point consciousness, communicate with the larger consciousness system, remote view, use your natural ability to heal with intent, and explore reality in the out-of-body state. His famous binaural beats are included. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.